Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. We've got a lot to talk about. The markets are kind of all up in arms, kind of showing some red numbers today, yesterday, the last couple of weeks, actually, all because of uncertainty in oil, right? We're definitely in the midst of an oil shock. So, today's episode, I got 4 points we want to cover. Number one, let's take a look at the importance of oil. Number two, oil and economic activity. We're in a kind of in a stagflationary environment. Kind of a tough times. Haven't had this really stagflationary issue since 2008. We'll take a look at what's going on, the current energy situation. I mean, it's not all bad. Some of the information we're going to share today, you're going to say, man, it's a great time to be alive in terms of like energy solutions and flexibility. Maybe not right now because we've got the issue going on in Ukraine and Russia, but man, what a time to be alive. And I'll show you some of this interesting technology breakthroughs that's taking place right now. And the last thing is, for all you investors, especially the ones who are enlightened, is the enlightened investor takeaway. So stick around because Mike's got some great information for us and some great takeaways considering what's going on right now. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And the first thing I want to talk about is our enlightened quotes of the day. I don't know if you like these things. I'm putting this together. I've got two enlightened quotes for you. Number one, Mr. Iron Man himself, my favorite guy, Elon Musk, and he said this yesterday, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas production immediately. And I think, he's the second most wealthiest individual in the world next to Vladimir Putin. And why is he saying this? Because he knows that these high oil prices are going to slow down the economy. It's going to be stagflationary. He doesn't want the economy to be destroyed. He's definitely a person who cares about the environment like we do, but we're in a situation now where we need to crank out some more production. And we can do that, especially if you take a look at the second quote. This is Daniel Yergin. Probably many of you don't know who he is. Definitely a person who I recommend you read a couple of his great books. Commanding Heights from 1999, and as well as The Map that just came out in 2020. And the reason I kind of like, he's the seminal energy analyst, probably one of the seminal energy analysts in the United States and the world today. And really he talked about, well, let's look at his quote. He said, people always underestimate the impact of technology. And there was a time not that long ago, like really back in 2008, if you can recall, where people were worried about this thing called peak oil and gas, peak oil. And I was even caught up on it because it was about conventional oil is like the field production is like a St. Louis arch. It goes up and it goes down over years. And we were seeing many of our large oil fields in the declining production phase. And so he said, don't worry, never fear. There is incredible, you don't have to go to Mars to see incredible technology. Look at what they're doing in the oil patch. And so they started drilling really in 2011, and they're not going down 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. They're going down 10 and 14,000 feet. I mean, people are having to wear, like the workers in the oil patch have to wear gloves because the oil is hot coming out of the ground because it's so close to the magma. I mean, can you imagine that? So we really thank Daniel Yergin for his predictions that we were not going to head to peak oil. The next thing I want to talk about is this incredible time we're living in. And one of the things that I think we can all see is that we're in a technological race right now in the energy area. Number one is about energy storage. I mean, I think everyone knows that we can produce a lot of energy, but we just can't store it. And the other one is fracking and horizontal drilling. That's another revolution. So there's two revolutions going on right now. It's kind of like a race. And we really want the race to be won by energy storage, but it's going to take some time. Now, there is a breakthrough that I do want to talk about. And Ryan, thankfully, I forgot my battery at home. Here's the Duracell battery. We're used to seeing these batteries that might last, a couple months. If you had a couple of these, you put them in a flashlight, that might last a little bit of time, and that's it. But now we have these incredible breakthroughs, and this is led in particular by Tesla. And I brought here, I don't give my kids like crappy soda and Coca-Cola. I try to give them like Izzy's. And the batteries that are coming out of Tesla and others, and Samsung, they're about the size of this Izzy bottle. This is about 50 millimeters, and this is a little bit higher than 80 millimeters. But if you look at that line right there, the batteries that are today are 4680s. This is the one you can see on the screen here. And these batteries, get a load of this, folks, just kind of give you a little size there. They can last, they can fully charge and they can fully exhaust themselves enough times where if you had a vehicle, you can get 1 million miles out of that vehicle. You can put these into a battery storage facility in your home. So if you can become your own power plant, essentially. You can sell the energy back to the grid by getting like a little power wall. If you here in Illinois, we have Ameren Energy, and if you want to, Ameren Energy can not have these diesel battery backups, but they can have backups with these batteries in them. So they can store the energy from wind and store from solar voltaics. Okay, so this is some major stuff going on with regards to energy storage, and we're still kind of in the infancy. We got a long way to go. And the other one you can see there is fracking and horizontal drilling. And I just want to show you, like, you can see the picture of it. It's somewhat controversial because you have to put more holes in the ground, and that goes through the water tables than the traditionally conventional oil. And then what they do is they send little, just really quickly, you can see there's these fissures on the ground under the shale. And what they do is they send balls down in the ground, and they essentially, under tight pressure, use explosions. And it separates this tight oil and gas from shale, and it flows back up. So it's kind of a new technology that really the United States is the only country right now that is able to make it work. I mean, China's tried it. It doesn't work there. Different countries have banned it. I understand that. There's some controversy with the water. To be honest with you, there's been some estimates in the economic literature that the amount of oil and gas production just by fracking alone is a stimulus package every year for about $2,000 per family. And how that works out is you pay lower heating and energy bills, and you pay lower gas bill, when you fill up at the gas station. It's about $2,000 a year. So this is a major benefit for our society. Okay, so again, let's talk about the importance of oil, and it's going to surprise you how important oil is. And some of you that don't really follow oil and energy very much, the first thing I want to talk to you about is that without energy, we would be poor. Obviously, we would not have development, industrialization, the lights and the computers in this room are all powered by energy, and you can see there, unfortunately, that the three major sources of energy comes from oil, coal, and gas still today. The growth of the renewable portion is growing, but it's still at a smaller fraction. And so you can take a look. This is a breakdown of where energy comes from globally. 33% oil, 27% coal, 24% gas, which is about 84%. And then 16% comes from renewables. And that does include nuclear. So what is oil used for? And I think one of the things that we oftentimes think about oil for, we think about it really in terms of economics. We think about it as an energy cost, a transportation cost, taking a thing, supply chain cost, taking the thing from one place and moving it to another. I mean, this Izzy right here was produced, where was this? Maybe California or something like that. It's 1,000 miles away from here. It had to come here. And so whether we're talking about jets and diesel and big trucks, right, semis, 81% of all the oil is used for transportation. 19% is used for commercial use. And those things are various and includes things like plastics and synthetics, the lotions we use on our hands, paint on the wall, fragrances, foods, fertilizers, pharmaceutical drugs, and wait for it, here it comes, and a crude oil health spas. Would any of you be interested in taking a crude oil health spa? And you can see here that in many cultures around the world, it's just crude oil, right? And it has a lot of healing properties. for muscular joint pain, bone conditions, gynecological and neurological conditions. So, Ryan, if I gave you $100, would you take a dip in the spa? He's shaking his head. He would. So anyway, there's a lot of uses for oil. Number two, oil and economic activity. Obviously, we talked about how there's the importance of oil in the economy. But however, I will say oil is very choppy with regards to its price action. And this action, this randomness, this volatility creates a lot of problems with regards to like business and household, their sentiments, right? Like how, are they confident in the future? How are businesses going to invest in fixed investment going forward if they know that there's a lot of uncertainty with regards to oil and energy? So the thing is, it's really a big driver for growth, but yet at the same time, we can't explain why there's so much volatility. Price action in oil is mainly driven by exogenous or random shocks. So that's one of the first takeaways I want you to take about. So one of the things is it is hard and difficult to explain the price action of oil. And I have a slide for you in a little bit that shows just how hard it is to predict. It's worse than the weather, okay? The next one is on oil price volatility and economic activity. And I want to show you, like, whenever there's a price spike, like what's going on right now, economists and financiers get a little bit worried about the state of the economy because usually these shocks, these oil shocks, are aggregate supply shocks or stagflationary, really, and it leads to recession. So you can see in 1991, 2007, and those are 2001. We see a little run up of oil prices before recessions. So some people, and I'm not quite yet one of them, are worried that we might be in for a recession here. There are some indicators like oil that are contractionary right now. But anyways, there's a great deal of relationship, a negative relationship between oil spikes and economic growth. So it might be a leading economic indicator for recessions. And so the Federal Reserve of Atlanta is kind of indicating that since oil prices are starting to rise, they've risen from about $60 in December 1st to about $120 today. It's about a complete doubling. And this is kind of a headwind for our economy. Okay, let's take a look at the global oil situation right now that's currently happening. And, before Ryan and I were setting up, we were watching TV here, and we were watching, at least I was watching, some of the sad figures coming out of the sad stories coming out of Ukraine. Ryan and I have families, and we can't imagine how it must be like for many people over there, in these bunkers without a home. They can't access credit. They can't access their bank. Essentially, overnight they became impoverished. It's really quite sad. So our hearts and prayers are continuing to be out, thinking about them. I do want to take a look at a positive thing, though. Yesterday, before the show, we're preparing for it. I said to my daughter, I said, Holly, let's go out and take a picture of some gas prices. And actually, Mike sent me a text. He said, I just filled up my truck for $140. So here we are at Kroger. They're in Washington. I'm not sure if any of you know where Washington, Illinois is, just right outside of Peoria. We stopped there, and I think this shot has three interesting takeaways. Number one is obviously the price of oils. It's $4.40 here in Peoria Heights today. But number two, if you look at that Kroger sign, look at that. It says, "Thank you, associates. We are now hiring." So the other takeaway is that we not only have oil shock, we have a labor shortage. And then at the same time, I think this is another takeaway. It might be a little bit like folksy or cheesy, but when you're with your family and friends, it definitely provides you with some joy and happiness. And so there's Holly there. She's our new enlightened investor with her little hat there. So, anyways, why are oil prices so volatile? And one of the reasons they're so volatile is because oil supply and consumption is so tight. In 2021, last year, oil production was about 95 million barrels per day, but oil consumption was 97 million barrels per day. So there's a little bit of drawdown of inventory. And you can see there that that's pretty tight. There's like 95 million per day and 97 million consumed. I mean, you're talking about really tightness in the energy markets. At the same time, if you add in Russia to a group of other countries that have serious internal problems, about 27% of all oil are in countries, the production of oil is in countries that have serious problems like conflict, dictators, communism, just dictatorial autocrats. And when you have 27% of all oil in this tight environment, you could have shocks like this. And that's what we're experiencing today with these high prices. And how will it be in the future? Like, what's the expectations? Is that the expectations are we're going to start producing more production and building up implied oil stocks, but it's going to be done so at tight margins. We're not going to see wild swings of like 10 million more barrels per day. It's going to be like 1 or 2 million barrels per day. And don't forget that some of that oil that's produced is really sludgy and has a lot of dense sulfur in it, and it's hard to refine. So there's a lot of issues with regards to oil. Okay, the last one, Enlightened Investor takeaways. I mean, you've been waiting around for this? What are some of the takeaways, right, for all you Enlightened investors? The first takeaway, there's a few of them. This is a good one, and it's kind of sad too at the same time, is that we're transitioning to sustainable energy, and this transition is going to continue. And that's great news. All right, you can see here that here's a graph here that in 2021, natural gas is the number one place where we get our energy from for our lights and things like this, our heating our homes. But and you can see coal's really taken a dive, and you can see those renewables catching up. But let's go ahead and move forward. This is a projection from the Energy Information Association, just came out in February. And you can see that over time in 2050, natural gas is still going to be the number one source of energy for our energy. And solar is really going to catch up, and wind is as well. But I think this is an important thing to remember, is that hydrocarbons are going to stay in the mix. And let's take a look at what Daniel Yergin has to say. He says, the starting point for energy security today, as it has always been, is diversification of supplies and sources. So, it's great to see coal declining, but we're probably going to be relying on natural gas for power production moving forward, along with solar and other things. So kind of some sad news there too. We're not going to get away from fossil fuel 100%. Okay, the second big thing that we wanted to have you take away from this as an enlightened investor is that no one can predict oil prices. Even the Energy Information Association, look at that spread on the Texas West Intermediate crude. If I went to work and I said, hey, listen, the price of anything next year could be $200 or it could be a 95% low level of confidence interval, $30, that's a tremendous differentiation, right? So, I mean, these people are worse than the weathermen. And, Ryan and I were talking before show, we said, the Kathy Wood, from ARK Invest, she actually predicted that oil would be, was it $15?
12, I think.
Or 12, Ryan's at $12 right at this point today. So predicting oil is a fool's errand. And I think maybe the last main thing that I want to leave you with today, this is the most important takeaway, is that about a week or so ago, maybe 5 days ago, I said, Mike, we're going to do a show on oil. And I said, could you give me some information on what the relationship is between oil prices and the market action? And you know what? I heard back from him like a day later, which is kind of, that's pretty slow for Mike, because Mike is really quick with the emails. And he said this in his email. He says, quote, "We don't communicate a correlation to oil and market returns." And I said, that is spot on. So what I did is I went to the Energy Information Association again, and I pulled this, and I want to show you that this is a very true quote, is that you can see here that correlation between the Brent price, crude price, And the S&P 500 correlation is very choppy. That's that correlation, very choppy. But watch this, folks. You need the correlation to be above 0.7 for it to be a significant relationship. And I think you can see on this graph that we never approach, well, we did approach zero point 0.7 at some points, like in 2020 and things like that, maybe in 2022 here a little bit with this market correction. But in general, the price action of oil and the S&P 500 is weakly correlated at best, all right? It's definitely correlated with the overall economic activity, but doesn't necessarily reflect that in the market. So, what can we tell you then? So the big takeaway is, what can we tell you as enlightened investors? And that is, stick with your plan, but make sure that you do have exposures to treat it like an inflation pressure. What I think is, treat oil price shocks as you would during inflationary times. And so you can see there that what does well in times that have energy shocks. So, small cap that value stocks, once again, equities, you might have a little bit of commodities in there, but definitely stay away from bonds and things like that. We've talked before about some of the issues with bonds moving forward. But again, folks, it doesn't feel good right now in this time. The markets are red today. We just want to encourage you to hang in there, stick with your plan. Don't be feared away from it. Don't watch CNBC, watch us, right? And that's kind of it. I want to leave you. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe if you haven't done it so already. We really appreciate your support and putting out content. There's a lot of time and effort put in these shows. We hope you like them. If you want to get in contact with us, the enlightened-investor.com. You can go there for free resources, recommended readings, keep reading all the time, and our contact information. Or you could also go to Cyprus and look them up online. So, folks, thanks for being here. Hang in there. This is the Enlightened Investor team. We're out.